Good morning. It is Tuesday. I'm off to work. Now, I didn't do a predictions video yesterday. It was the first game of a new endeavor. It was character creation, so there wasn't a great deal to predict. But I think it still might be worth recapping. We created characters for Mage. Interestingly, we decided this time around that we were going to have the players create themselves. It's a twist I've used before with different groups. I haven't run Mage for this group before, so... what I did, though, was I threw out all of the normal kind of balanced dot assignment procedures, and I went through each stat with the players and had them decide where they genuinely thought their ability was. And it was very interesting to see where things ended up. We did not have anyone that ended up with the normal 3, 5, 7, which would be the normal starting stats in Mage, but we did have quite a few, like 4, 6, 7s. So just above starting. We did have a couple like 5, 7, 7s. But interestingly, what I saw in this was that for the most part, the younger the player in the group was, the closer to the starting stats they ended up. Now, there are any number of reasons for that, but I find it very interesting that it could be easily explainable by years of experience, which is what experience points are supposed to represent. So, I had each character create themselves. Once they had created themselves, we went through the 5 conventions of the technocracy, and I told them what each convention was looking for. Now, this is a bit different as well, because I didn't just let them pick who they wanted to join. I told them, this is the kind of person that the NWO would recruit. The NWO wants someone with good social abilities, good leadership abilities, the ability to manipulate others, the ability to understand others. And I ran them through the stats and skills that each group would be looking for. And then we determined which group they ended up with. Basically, if 2 or 3 different groups were interested in you, then you had a bit of leeway to choose which group you ended up going for. But it meant that they joined groups that made sense. Now, I don't necessarily think everyone in the group was as happy as they could have been on that. But I do think that from a logical, cohesive standpoint, the groups that people ended up in were the groups that they were best suited for. Maybe there was an element there of it not being the group that they would like to be best suited for. But again, you can always branch out. This is what when you were hired in, what department were you first hired into? That's not to say that you're stuck there forever. You can, in some instances, transfer over or work with the other group, even though you're in a different group. There are a lot of things that can go on there to influence that. Once we knew what group they were in, we then took them through training. Now, training is exactly that. The group that they joined took them through years of training and improvements and betterments, and they basically got some additional dots with a little bit of guidance. For example, their attribute dots that they added had to be added in their group primary recruitment sphere. So yeah, they got some more dots to add. We discussed backgrounds, both the ones that they had as a mundane person, and then the ones that they had in addition to that once they became a mage. Their spheres were assigned a little bit differently. Rather than just giving them 6 spheres to start with, they actually got 8 spheres to start with, but there were some restrictions on them. They had to have at least 1 dot in all of their sphere focuses, and they had to have a dot in prime, and it ended up basically leaving them with 4 dots to put wherever they wanted it, and a lot of ones that they necessarily had to have because of their training. I find that forcing them to take the 1s in all of their convention sphere, I think that combined with giving the extra spheres, I think making them take those dots without giving the extra spheres would be cruel. But forcing them to take those 1s, but then giving them the extra spheres along with that, what I find it ends up doing is it gives them a little bit of grounding in a wider area. Because if not, my school spheres are forces, matter, and prime. I'm just going to go pure forces and not know anything about matter or prime. With 6 dots, that would happen. Someone would do that. They would pick heavy into 1 sphere of their group and completely ignore the rest. By making them have the 1 in each, but then giving them the extra spheres, effectively what you're doing is you're spreading out those extra points in 1s. That means they can at least detect it. They still can't do a great deal with them, but they can detect them. And that's something. It gives them an understanding of the basics that their group would have taught them. My guy is not going to let me over. And then I gave them their freebie points. I also gave them a number of static backgrounds. Things that, because of who they are, and because of the technocracy that they work for, they simply would have been given these. I didn't make them buy points in Construct. They were assigned, you're working here. I didn't make them buy dots in Requisitions, because their rank gives them a certain amount of requisition. I then gave them a few background points, very few actually, only I think 4 or 5, to improve the ones that they had. And that's explained away by simply saying, okay, yeah, because you're a lieutenant, or whatever you want to call the rank, you can requisition 3 dots of Technocratic Union gear. Well, actually, you're a lieutenant that has put a lot of effort into figuring out, okay, I know the supply sergeants, I know the guys that are responsible for filling these orders. I've made friends with them, I know the name of his wife, I can ask him how he's doing, and because of that, I can get a little bit more than I would have gotten otherwise. That's what I figure those extra dots represent, is extra time taken in areas. And we left it at that for this week. Next week we will continue character creation. We'll go down into the nitty-gritty of which parts of their group are they in, what type of NWO member, or what type of progenitor, or what type of Iteration X person are they. And at that point, we will begin the game. We'll run an introduction, and we'll go from there. I haven't really decided 100% which direction the game is going to go yet. I have some ideas. I think it's going to be a mix of kind of some one-shot adventure missions where, go and do this. Why? Because you're the closest agents in the area and it needs doing. It's not going to be tied to some bigger story. It's not going to be tied to some massive meta plot. It will simply be, there's this group over here that needs sorting out. Go sort them. There will also be a larger meta plot. And there will be some things in some missions that may be involved in that meta plot. And part of the game might end up being figuring out which missions are just a mission and which missions are involved in this meta plot. And then the last one will be to target in on specific player goals. One player has already told me that he wants to politically advance and to move up the ranks. So that will become a goal as well. So there we have it. That is the Mage recap and what to look forward to next week. It should be fun. I'm looking forward to this game. I think that the time was coming for a break from D&D. As much as I love D&D and as much as I've always enjoyed it, sometimes you need to change. And sometimes you need that change just to realize how much you want to go back. Other times you just need a break. I think this is one of those times. I'll let you go now. I'm almost to work. Like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Can't say that enough. I talked to you yesterday about how many views and subscribers and everything else I have, and I do really appreciate it. So thank you, all of my subscribers, and I'll be back tomorrow.